Greetings and salutations, everyone. FireSide here with another FireSide chat. I believe this is number 7 or 8. Who's really keeping track? UFC 290, Volkanovski versus Rodriguez. First fight on the card, Kimwella Kirk versus Esteban Rebovich. Esteban Rebovich his good striking, a good jab, an ability to throw in combinations. He does stand a little upright, in my opinion. His last fight against, I believe, Radzhabov, he, of course, fought a grappler who was on short notice, who, funny enough, in his last fight, had a training camp and didn't show up at all, could barely make weight. So quite an anomaly in that one. Who knows what kind of sauce he was on or not against Rebovich, but he's not too impressive physique-wise. But he will be there all 3 rounds fighting for your money. His price has come down since opening as a much heavier favorite, but has since come back up. Kimwella Kirk did have a short run in the UFC. I did fade him a few times there. He squeaked one out. Just seemed to not have that fighter heart. I don't want to knock him too much. These are fist fights. One punch changes everything. The direction of the fight, how someone's thinking, how they even react. So you guys know that. Anyway, Kimwella Kirk, not the best striking. He has pretty decent grappling. I would say average at the UFC level. This is, of course, a contender series level fight, honestly, with Rebovich, of course, being more UFC ready in a sense. I don't really value Kirk's resume too much. I mean, you do have Damon Jackson, Makwan Amerikani. Both fighters don't really move the best. Very veteran styles. Amerikani, we know, is a 1-round fighter, so he got through that 1 round and came through it with the decision. I mean, otherwise, Amerikani should have smoked him. We know he was shot. Doesn't have anything in the tank. Most likely retired now. Whereas Damon Jackson is getting knocked out viciously. And we see his level. So, that's his second fight. Not saying Damon Jackson's an easy fight for anyone. Maybe certain matchups, but that was a matchup that you would have expected him to do a little better in. He just wasn't able to get it done and was finished. So I like Rebovich a little better here. I've been waiting for the line and where it was going to end up, just to get a gauge on a few things. Of course, I always like to see weigh-ins first and foremost, before I lay any real action on anything. I even bet up until the fight actually starts. So, that's a perk to online betting. I know a lot of people like to have the physical ticket, maybe for tax reasons or otherwise. But, I'm doing this for fun, and we figure it out when we win. Shannon Ross versus Jesus Aguilar. By the way, Rebovich can definitely KO Kirk, especially if he's catching him. Like I was saying, Kirk, being fairly low heart, tends to fade if he's getting touched a little bit. We could see that happening. Amerikani, of course, doesn't touch anyone outside the first 2 minutes, 30 seconds of the fight, before he shoots his takedown and tries to smotherfuck yeah, so Rujovic throwing combinations here. As long as he can defend the grappling, should most likely win. Via striking, boxing, hooks, backing Kirk up with his power, most importantly, showing impact, which we'll see how judging works with this card. It could be one or the other, or not consistent at all. Truthfully, this goes to decision. It could be a little sketchy. If you like Rujovic, the sketchy path would, of course, be some way of knockout. So, and Kirk, of course, find a submission, or wouldn't count on it, given Rujovic can defend those type of attacks along the cage, where he can scramble away, force Kirk's gas tank in an inactive fighter, and start piecing him up in the feet. So, probably already spent enough time on this. It's just, unfortunately, one of those fights that are lined where you can actually make money on. So you have to consider laying aside and really figuring out and tuning where you want to go. So, considering where the line is moved, where the value is now, you have to go with Rujovic. Shannon Ross, Jesus Aguilar, fight number 2. Just how they line up at weigh-ins. If Shannon Ross is on his lateral movement, is using his tools properly, he can use the size advantage to just win in the larger octagon. Jesus Aguilar is going to have to just be the more physical, dominating athlete, which it can happen. He seems to be ready to go. Both these guys seem in tune, in shape, focused. You don't really see any ching in the armor from the weigh-ins and face-offs, you could say. Not that you put too much into it. You can just tell specifically when people have bad weight cuts, and that does affect people's performances. So what I'm thinking is that with Shannon Ross is just straight up dimensions here. He can get it done. He can edge it. He's maybe plus money. It's possible. Then again, you kind of always want to bet grappling. You can tell him kind of back and forth in this one. It might be up until literal fight day, fight happening, live bet situation to see what Ross has in store. If Jesus Aguilar gets his grappling going, it could be very obvious where the fight's headed. I guess the only precursor to that strategy is if there's a flash submission or an early finish, like what happened last week with Benoit Saint Denis. I had a free bet on him, on my picks last week. I actually picked a few underdogs and, almost edged a couple of those close ladies decisions, and it was like a huge night. I mean, otherwise it was almost break even, if not break even. So it was lucky to survive. Kind of a weird night. But the Brennan fight was amazing with Guram. Really dug deep, turned him off. Just one of those MMA moments, Shannon Ross by decision. Just being stronger, bigger guy, more fit. Even for being a flyweight, it seems like Jesus Aguilar could be a strawweight, 115 fighter. We'll see fight night what happens. Cameron Saymon versus Terrence Mitchell. Terrence Mitchell, man, he's got a really awkward build. Maybe he can catch Cameron Simon, but I don't see it happening. Simon, next level fighter, kind of the future. He's been prepared, ready to go. In a fight camp with Dricus Du Plessis, I do believe. Terrence Mitchell, too much to go by. When someone's getting knocked out super quick, and then they're not really facing too many guys that are worth too much weight. Like, the guys he faces might just face him and then never fight again. They just realize, like, hey, I lost to Terrence Mitchell. I can't go any farther in this scene because that's all there is in Alaska. So, yeah, his last 3 wins, basically, every single guy, that was their last fight. However, the last one did happen back in April. We've got Cara France knocking him out, which isn't necessarily a bad thing on anyone's record, because we know Cara France is level. But if you're going to be champion material, of course, you don't want too much of that type of stuff up and down. However, this is an undercard fight. Maybe Cameron Simon is champion material. Is Terrence Mitchell? He doesn't have enough high-level experience. Cameron Simon's literally already been in there with cumulative higher-level guys. Then, I don't know, Mana Martinez looked like shit. He goes regional, looked like shit. He just doesn't seem interested in being a fighter. Steven Kozlow, who are you? That's his last fight. He hasn't fought in over 6 months. Joss Wong Kim. He lost earlier this month. So we're looking at both these guys, and something no one really talks about. I know Cameron Salmon is 8-0. It's just he doesn't have the experience either. His technique's there. You're going to need to watch a little more fight tape on Terrence Mitchell tonight just to see where that skill gap is. Because I know Cameron Simon likes to stand his guard. He's got good leg kicks, good fouls, of course. Maybe a good check hook, right? If I'm remembering correctly. So Terrence Mitchell can completely fade in his re-debut. Dude's super skinny. It's kind of crazy. So let's just side with Simon inside the distance and go on to our next fight. And that's Vitor Petrino versus Marcin Prachnio. And I just do not like the fight tape for really either fighter. And given that I don't want, Vitor Petrino, he's 8-0. You watch his debut versus Anton Turkalj, the pleasure man, and he's just squaring up stance-wise, winging hooks at this guy, catching him on the chin, eventually goes down himself, and pleasure man, if he weren't so unpleasurable in that fight, he's not going to give up position to Petrino really maybe 6 times. Petrino reversed him easily because he just made basic technical errors in his positioning when he was in dominant positions. So it's hard to judge too much also because he chin-checked Turkalj early, probably emptied the tank trying to finish a little bit. Now, is Marcin Prachnio a better striker than Anton? Yes, absolutely. He's more technical. He knows how to use footwork along the cage, use his range with his kicks, counter-strike properly when someone's entering, especially sloppily like Vitor Petrino. And that's just where I can't get past, despite Prachnio's obvious durability in his chin. So I think this is one that I might end up betting. on the Pragno side and just sweating it out. If he dies, he dies, right? Because like you gotta be more than just a physique at this level, and his skill is just not there yet. I don't know if he's like one of these future guys or just going to be like a Gregory Rodriguez, which is much more likely for someone like Vitor Petrino, in my opinion. Marcin Pragno can just dog walk him along the perimeter. Why not? Why can't he do that? You know, he catches a kick, just pounds him through the mat. All right, Petrino, you did something you couldn't do against, you know, a little less beaten up Turkalj. But, you know, it's an MMA fight. We can just kind of guess what happens. But both these guys are big, man. They're big. Can't really judge the William Knight fight at all, but you got to understand William Knight couldn't get anything done. He was just getting countered. He couldn't get off on anything. He was a shorter guy. He got beat to the punch. I'm pretty sure I even picked William Knight that night. Had money on him maybe to knock him out, because it was the same kind of handicap in this fight. So, Petrino's maybe a little better than we think he is. Vitor Petrino either is or isn't. So, you know what? I'm getting plus money on the veteran that has technical aspects that are clearly there over someone. He just has to survive an early barrage before he finds the chinks in the armor of Petrino's striking, which, you know, as long as he has a ferocity to stand his ground and bite his mouthpiece and not get knocked out, then we'll see what happens with Petrino. If he can get by a guy with actually good striking, that's not just going to fall him to the ground and let him reverse position. So, Turkalj, Petrino, awesome scrap, but makes neither guy look very good. But also a small cage. So another thing to think about is Pragno using the perimeter with his kicks in the larger cage. So Tetsuya Taira, Edgar Shiraz, catch weight 130 pounds. Shiraz, he might be the bigger guy. I'm not 100% certain, you know. They're making Taira cut weight potentially, and then cutting it a little less here at a catch weight. I feel like Shiraz will fight for your money, but you just got to count on Taira finding his back almost every round, because that's just what he does. It's kind of crazy. And if this guy's fading and his UFC debut, then why can't Taira just find that submission in the second round, or find the finish rather? So let's consider a second round, third round finish for Tetsuya Taira, who's just going to technically be better than Shiraz, and wear him out that way. Finds back in the second again, find the finish, set him up for something. Let's go. That's a favorite. Surprise, surprise. So Jimmy Crute, Alonzo Minifield. Crute looked great at weigh-ins, man. That kind of swung my decision his way over Minifield. This is all just an act. But is it really? You know, if I'm a pro fighter, I want to look great at weigh-ins. I want people to think that I'm ready. And I want my opponent to know that I'm ready as well. That we can put on a show. But Jimmy Crute didn't have the mullet, most importantly. I'm pretty sure he's the mullet guy, right? So when that happens, you know he's serious, and he wants to win this one, because I don't think he's happy about, you know, the draw of the last fight and how that went, especially considering surviving the onslaught and getting it done in the later rounds. Ending up with a foul, you got your point deduction, and the rest is history, right? So let's go Jimmy Crute. The way Minifield's looking, I think he might even submit him in the second round. You know, just kind of break him down, maybe third round. So he didn't throw anything against Willie Knight, right? So Jimmy Crute came to fight inside the distance. Yasmin Uruguay, Denise Gomes. Yasmin Uruguay is a lot of hype behind her. The line reflects that. Denise Gomes has her own good style. She showed up in her last fight. Hasn't had the easiest outing in the UFC. Imagine fighting Loma Lookboonmee in your debut. So she got a little easier test and looked really good against Bruno Brazil. However, Yasmin Uruguay is not Bruno Brazil. This is a big step up, but is it a step up to the sense that I've already fought someone with the striking dynamic of a Loma Lookboonmee, who was very technical with her kicks, her clinching game. And in that sense, she's starting to mix in her takedowns with that clinching game and becoming a well-rounded mixed martial artist. Is Yasmin Uruguay there yet? I would say she holds a lot more power in her hands than someone like Loma Lookboonmee. Not necessarily the kicking game. And Loma has one of the best clinching games in that division, which is something just interesting to think about now, handicapping this fight-wise. So I'm getting a little sketched out on Uruguay here against Denise Gomes, who fought Loma Lookboonmee to a decision in her debut, but just, got just overwhelmed. I mean, understandably. Lumpini Stadium champion, right? So it almost wants to be a pass, but Yasmin Uruguay, I feel, should edge her standing. She should be more precise, more powerful. She has the size for that reason. And that, physique-wise, Les Gomes is just going to bomb her. Which would be pretty crazy. The sport does kill hype like no other, right? Then just take her piecing up Gomes. Using her power, maybe late second round, third round decision. Crazy predictions. Fight 8 is Jack Della versus Josiah Rell. I believe this was canceled, so we got to skip it. But, you got to pick Jack by knockout there. So I'm pretty sure I just had him in a random parlay I made earlier in the week. Of course, now that leg is canceled, so a little less value on that bet, which is depressing. Fight 9, Robbie Lawler, Nico Price. So Robbie Lawler, what's said that already hasn't been said? He's showing that getting hit hurts him physically, which is, tough to see. He's got the gladiator in his arm. We've seen him be a gladiator. He still is. But he's breaking down. And you got Nico Price, who is surgically repaired, goes on to fight Phil Rowe. Couldn't get it done. Looked good in that fight in moments, but that's just kind of how a Nico Price fight goes, because he runs at people with his chin forward and his arms his hands by his hips, and he's there to be hit for the most part. But Robbie Lawler cannot withstand the firefight. He just can't do it. So is Nico Price just going to fight with an idol in his last fight and give him a good fight, and the judges give it to Robbie Lawler and fuck over all the people that bet on Nico Price? That's completely possible here. Robbie's going to go out. He's going to do a lot of his shell movement, come up, almost like he's boxing in the mirror. Only instead of his reflection, it's going to be Nico Price. Probably just jabbing at him. But I don't know. If you're Nico Price, you just want to get him out of there, right? So let's take Nico Price by knockout in the first round. I mean, Robbie Lawler can be submitted too, but does Nico Price go sub first? I mean, he's just going to try and brute force through and see what happens in the opening moments. Throw his jab out there. Maybe see if Lawler has any power left. See if he can eat a Lawler ham sandwich. You know, that's what some guys do. They try and test guys' power at the start. They don't need it flush, but like fielding their arms, whatnot. That gives them an opportunity to get caught. His chin did not look the best. Neither guy's does. I don't know. Robbie just winces to everything. He got check hooked by Brian Barberena. Changed the fight. He's just coming in, going for the finish. Got sloppy. Changed the fight. Turned him off standing. And he just started to go down from there. Because he probably didn't know where he was. Nico Price. Just same thing. Like technical faults. Get these guys caught. And they give their opponents an opportunity to capitalize. So for that reason, you got to go with Nico Price. Knockout late, round 1, round 2. Would be my guess if it's over. Then congrats to Nico Price for not just getting him out of there when he probably could. And making this fight closer than it needs to be. Then again, you know, like I was saying, this could be a starstruck moment. You just want to be in there fighting with one of your heroes or idols in the sport, getting cage time with them outside of a potential training room, getting paid for it, and maybe getting a fight of the night bonus with a legend that the UFC may favor in his retiring night. So that's not normally how these things go. Normally, Robbie Lawler is going to get knocked out. Nico Price is going to kill him. So we'll see. Bo Nickel, Val Woodburn. It's all about, can Val survive the first round? Highly unlikely. The size difference here is crazy. Bo Nickel can really just snap him down from standing. He's almost waist high. It's unbelievable, dude. But he is a big guy. Kind of reminds me of just the way his power is, of course, not as precise, but like like an off-brand Melvin Manhoof does Val Woodburn. And Bo Nickel, long term, he says he's only going to train in a small gym. I don't know if that can limit him potentially, so that's something to consider moving forward as he experiences more of a challenge going up the middleweight ladder. But Val Woodburn, man, he is the biggest underdog maybe ever, money line wise. Going into a fight, live we've seen bigger, of course. But guys, can you bet Bo Nickel by submission? Because that's how it's going to go. He's just going to overpower and flatten out Val, and probably just pull his head back, get the chin. Because I don't see him arm triangling this guy. This guy is like super stocky and muscly build, but maybe it's just later in the fight. What if it is that second round? He's completely gassed from just wrestling nonstop for a round or two. Maybe it's late first round. These aren't the craziest theories, but Val looked like he's in good shape. So even if it is 2 days notice, however long you want to give him to fight somebody, Um, you size him up and you just see if you can chin check Bo Nickel at the start. He does have power in his hands. He throws bombs. So that is something interesting. He knows how to throw an uppercut against a guy changing levels on him. So, dude, I mean, unless he is completely overwhelmed in the moment, he might have an opportunity or two to land something heavy. Bo Nickel's fresh, though. He hasn't taken a bunch of punches, maybe a few knees in training to the head in the wrestling room accidentally, but nothing like, let's say, Robbie Lawler, who's been through multiple 5-round wars. You get where I'm going with this. So even if Val is connecting on him, unless he just doesn't have a chin, or it's just some sweet little short check hook, he never sees coming, or uppercut, like I was saying, then how does he not just run through this guy? Literally, he's going to just bulldoze him over, throw him to the mat, and just hunt the finish nonstop till it happens. I really do believe he probably has the gas tank to just hunt for 15 minutes straight. Now, in a 5-round fight, maybe that's where Bo Nickel gets in trouble. Or, of course, when someone can truly stop his takedowns over the course of 15 minutes. But that's why he's training MMA. He's going to be drilling this stuff nonstop in the room because he takes it serious. I know I would if I had his physical gifts and entry into the sport. What about you? So let's go Bo Nickel late round 1. Sprinkle round 2 for Val showing up and just gutting it through one round with this guy. It would be sick. I saw someone mention something about an over half round. That's super interesting too. So weigh-ins, Bo's huge. He's like a farm raised cornbread. He doesn't have that crazy physique, super shredded like Val Woodburn. He just has that training physique. He's not there doing reps and squats and all that stuff. I don't believe he's just doing reps in the wrestling room and the training room, the striking room. So, Bo by submission. Crazy. Dan Hooker, Jalen Turner. Jalen Turner missed weight, 158. Dan Hooker looked like shit too, but he made weight. Hooker dragging his legs. You can tell he's tired as fuck. Jalen Turner is the same. God, man, how does this fight go the distance? I don't know. It could. Turner's sucked out, dry, maybe doesn't have that power anymore, but has the ability to go the distance. We saw with Gamrot. Dan Hooker, in that sense, if Jalen Turner is not being offensive, Dan Hooker can definitely overwhelm him if he's had a bad weight cut. That scares me because I like Jalen Turner, like a few other people. He's been one of those guys I look out for every single time he fights because I'm trying to find the edge to where he can make me money or make us money, to say unselfishly, because he's making himself and us money. So I always remind that to myself too, the vast majority of the time, like when Lupita Godinez chooses to go to a split decision with Angela Hill, and just brawls down with that girl and doesn't use any sort of grappling control to just kind of edge her decision. I just remind myself that they lost more money than I did by losing that fight. More often than not. These aren't the crazy-ass Shane Burgos contracts with PFL where he's getting $700,000 to show up or something. Most of these contracts are structured show and win, and of course the performance bonuses are icing on top. Not that they're getting paid what they're worth. That's another discussion entirely. Jalen Turner, though, I do like him to win this fight by club and sub. I think he just has to get it done early. Dan Hooker's prone to be blitzed. He gets shocked when he gets cracked. He gets turned off a little bit, and that gives his opponent a very real opportunity to get the finish. Michael Chandler can catch him. Michael Chandler's an athlete. Jalen Turner's an athlete. Islam can submit him without any real striking, hurting him. And Jalen Turner has almost the submission capabilities of an Islam, maybe not the wrestling and top control prowess, but he does have submission ability. I think he's going to just win this fight by some type of like guillotine. Just Dan Hooker's going to get hurt and fall forward, if not searching for a takedown, and Jalen Turner's going to find that neck. So let's go Jalen Turner submission. Round number 1. Let's just make it easy. Even though the weight cut sucked, a lot of these fighters missing weight are still winning anyway. He's my pick before the weight miss. God damn, like he came out just soaking wet for his last attempt. Didn't even bother to dry off. Didn't even bother to shave his head. So he doesn't give a fuck truly about making 156, right? He probably had 2 pounds and enough time. I'm pretty sure he had time, but just looking at that weight miss, he just, maybe he's had enough in life. Like even you're giving part of your purse to Dan Hooker because you're missing weight. I'm not sure. It's 15%? So Jalen Turner, Dan Hooker makes a lot more money than Jalen Turner. Maybe it doesn't mean anything to him. But maybe he even said, nah, man, I don't need it. Don't worry about it. If I'm Dan Hooker, I'm probably taking it. But Jalen Turner submission, round 1. Yeehaw. Rob Whittaker, Dricus du Plessis. Du Plessis is big, man. I've been siding with him more or less through his run up to now, and I just can't do it. He does make technical mistakes. The fights I thought he would win just because he has power, finishing ability, and these other guys are low heart, low technicality. They break down late in fights or throughout fights, whereas Dricus is always dangerous, finding his finish. Rob Whittaker, though, even hurt, he powers through, he stays technical, he finds his way to win. He's going to double up Dricus when strikes landed, I do believe. His boxing, his jab. Dricus has got to hurt him. He's got to have the moments to win the fight by decision. Of course, he has a moment, hurts him. Rob Whittaker is not impossible to finish. But it takes someone as technical and savvy as Israel Adesanya. So let's not compare Dricus du Plessis and Israel Adesanya and their finishing ability, because they're entirely different fighters. Dricus wants to break you. He wants you to quit. And their common opponent is the Darren Till, but we're talking about a Darren Till that hadn't fought seriously like I'm clicking to Darren Till here. I'm just right. So he loses a decision to Whittaker, and I guess it's close, so they reschedule it. Or they'd reschedule it originally because Tapology has both the Whittaker fights stacked back to back. But Darren Till has not won a fight since losing to Robert Whittaker in that close decision. He's gone through all sorts of issues in his personal life. I don't want to speak too much. I don't know the guy. I hope he's happy. Whatever you believe in, I hope he's blessed in life for getting punched in the head for a living, and he's happy, right? But those guys in the Kamzat gym, they're complete crapshoot. They don't seem to have cardio late. They don't seem to have the biggest heart if they're completely outskilled. We're going to see the Kamzat. Why isn't he taking fights? So I don't know. They're having I don't want to speak in any absolutes about that camp, about like Alex Gustafsson or Guram, who had like a terrible weight cut, was super sucked out, got finished by Brenner, Darren Till, who got finished late, Gilbert Burns is coming back late in fights against Kamzat, I'm just saying. But we're talking Robert Whittaker, Dricus du Plessis, and someone who crosses their feet when they strike and run forward against someone like Robert Whittaker is just, I don't see it. I feel like Whittaker's just going to step off on him, and he's going to out-jab him. He's going to land his front teep to stifle his movement, his in and out. You got to remember, this guy, unless you're someone super savvy at kickboxing like an Israel Adesanya, Whittaker's just timing your way in with that annoying front teep. So any power shots that Dricus du Plessis is trying to wing from his hip to find his way inside on Whittaker, maybe this fight just ends by like a front kick to the knee. That would be pretty wild. We've seen that stuff before. It's pretty brutal. But, just the way I see it, the kick setups, the kicks coming in, the jab, and he can do that for all 3 rounds. I don't know if he even necessarily can finish. It's kind of later into his career, and Dricus has shown durability. But man, give me Robert Whittaker. Let's just say by decision. If he gets a finish, I will be thrilled. What would not be thrilling is if someone just ran over Robert Whittaker without any technical skill and then goes in to fight Adesanya and maybe does the same thing. That would be some wild shit, so never mind. That would be pretty wild. So Brandon Moreno, Alexandre Pantoja. Straight up, give me the champion, Brandon Moreno. Give me his boxing, that he's improved 5 times over from even when they last fought. They do have common opponents. Both guys have the good and bad things about their skill set, even though Pantoja's super well-rounded. Moreno, at this point in his career, super high fight IQ. I don't see him willingly engaging with Pantoja in scrambles that will allow Pantoja to find an easy win in this fight. Nor do I really think that Moreno hasn't leveled up enough on the mat to defend a Pantoja attack there and get back standing. It's really about who's going to make the impact in the striking department. And I like Moreno's boxing. He showed us enough in the Figueiredo bouts with someone that has legitimate fight-changing power but may not have the technical prowess of a Pantoja standing. Pantoja keeps it a little tighter, a little more technical. But because of that, you might see him waiting on someone like Moreno or getting countered, because Moreno's using a lot more feints these days and has an interesting defensive shell with his hands. I like what he does. It's like a nice skirting of the rule set where, when you're boxing, you're really curling your hands towards you, but he's using the MMA gloves as a shield for his face, and you can still see through your fingers, so it's a good way to parry and counter off of that. So just let's go Brandon Moreno decision. Crowd loved him. He's got a ton of followers on Instagram. It's going to make the UFC more money than Pantoja. And maybe he just doubles him up on strikes late. Super exciting fight, though. I'm ready for it. And ready for the main event. Alexander Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez. These are two champion caliber fighters. At both their respective stages in their careers, neither has really lost a step. They gain a step every fight. Though Yair Rodriguez still finds his way to finish forward. He finishes guys and in really savvy ways sometimes. He just finds a small hole in their defense that changes the fight. I don't know how much credit you can give him for submitting Brian Ortega with a modified arm lock that dislocated his shoulder. That was really just a failed armbar from guard that he just held on to for dear life to not give up position, because Ortega was about to pass his guard. So he's holding on for dear life, dislocates it. So Ortega's out, fights Max. Max takes him down. Shows off his purple belt level grappling. We have Volk defending the belt, stopping Korean Zombie, who had no business being there with him in the first place, destroying Max. I won't say a third time. I think Max won the second fight, but for the second time, and badly, you have him really taking 2 rounds of 5 against Islam Makhachev. Why is Volk not going to be using his wrestling against Yair Rodriguez? The only answer would be is if Yair hurts him badly enough, doesn't allow him to enter safely, which he's so good with his footwork along the cage that he would be able to find that entry. He would be able to press and get to the clinch along the fence. But Yair is good at circling. We, of course, know that. He likes to stand tall and exit backwards. That's where Volk's going to catch him with extended overhand punches, maybe combinations to the body. And that's also where Yair can rebound off of that movement and catch him with some type of kick or knee, elbow, something. So, Frankie Edgar showed you what to do with Yair Rodriguez early on. Doesn't mean Yair hasn't improved his takedown defense, but I think we've seen Volkanovski has the chops to employ a strategy to where he can just take Yair Rodriguez down and hurt him enough, slow him down enough. Why trade with him standing at any sort of range if you don't need to? But man, Volk is so good. He may just go out here, leg kick him, time Yair, because he does have great boxing as well, and just really show why he is the great. So Yair's got durability these days, but man, if all these favorites win, and it's Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez, and this goes to a close decision, the UFC has been trying to set up Yair Rodriguez as potential champion for what seems like a decade. So guys, I'm really sketched out on Volkanovski winning a decision under those circumstances, especially as Yair just throws kicks, knows he has to go through hell to win this fight on a scorecard. So if the wrestling isn't convincing enough and the ground and pound isn't convincing enough and it's close enough to give to Yair Rodriguez, it will go to Yair Rodriguez. You bet your sweet tits. It will. But I do like Volk more. he can get stopped here. Can, of course, lose that type of split. He can, of course, also win via technical striking, via ground and pound. It's hard. I mean, shit. Yair Rodriguez can submit Volkanovski in a scramble. He hurts him, and he submits him just like he did Josh Emmett. It's not out of the realm of possibility. The guy knows how to submit men. I mean, he's submitted guys before. I didn't think he'd submit Josh Emmett. I mean, Josh Emmett was basically TKO'd standing at that point and just fell to the mat in that position. So, really, that's a Yair Rodriguez TKO, in my humble opinion. But he got the triangle win. So, can you find something like that against Volk where, Ortega is literally the laziest guy ever and not this super spaz Yair who just finds he can do it. So it's just Yair, Volk goes to decision. Volkanovski by decision wins with his grappling. You already experienced Islam Makhachev. How does Yair Rodriguez defend this guy's grappling unless he just has nothing in the tank from the weight cut? He looked completely sucked out and dry. So, all stuff to consider. Love you, each and every one of you. Like and subscribe. See you next time on Fireside Chat.